I think I found an actual countdown tied to Stranger Things episode 9. And here's the thing, Netflix doesn't do accidents like this. If this countdown means nothing, then the finale we got has to go down as one of the most disappointing endings in modern TV. But if it does mean something, then Stranger Things just pulled off the boldest marketing stunt we've ever seen. A secret website appeared out of nowhere called November6th, 1987.com. That date alone should already ring alarm bells. If you go to the site, there's a live countdown ticking towards something, and every few moments, the screen flashes a blue clock. Here's the part that matters. When you interact with the countdown, the animation kicks in, and the clock always starts at exactly 7 o'clock. 7, not random. 7 p.m., January 7th. The number that's been haunting the finale, the credits, the dice, the marketing, everything. And Netflix didn't stop there. Netflix Korea posted a clip that simply says, "It's time with zero context." That clip then popped up again during WWE programming, of all places, with audio that clearly sounds like someone saying, "Mike, wake up." That's not subtle. And wrestling isn't random either. Netflix now owns WWE. They control that broadcast. This is where the rumors really start stacking up. People noticed Netflix Netherlands changed their bio to say one last episode, but upside down. Other official accounts posted clocks frozen at 1/7. Even the letter counts in bios add up to 17. It's obsessive, and Netflix knows exactly what it's doing. Now here's the uncomfortable part. If there is no episode 9, then this finale has to go down as one of the most disappointing endings in modern TV. Just flat out unsatisfying. And that's why this trend even exists in the first place. Conformity Gate didn't come from nowhere. It came from viewers feeling like the writing broke its own rules. Character logic stopped making sense. Emotional beats felt hollow. Visual inconsistencies piled up. People didn't start hunting for secret endings because it was fun. They did it because the ending felt wrong. And Netflix knows that. Stranger Things is one of the only shows on the planet big enough to attempt something this risky. Dropping a fake ending, letting the internet spiral, turning confusion into marketing, turning disappointment into curiosity. No other show could survive that gamble. Either episode 9 is real, or Netflix accidentally trained its audience to believe the story wasn't finished. And if it's the second option, that's a failure bigger than any monster in the Upside Down. The clock is ticking, and January 7th is getting closer. Now add this. The finale credits play Heroes by David Bowie. On its own, that feels emotional, nostalgic, earned. But Stranger Things doesn't use that song casually, ever. Stranger Things has used Heroes exactly 3 times across the entire show, and every single time it played, the audience was being misled. The first time was season 1, episode 3. The song plays when the town believes Will is dead. We later find out that body wasn't real. It was a fake out. The second time was season 3, during Hopper's supposed sacrifice. Again, emotional monologue, big goodbye, cue Heroes. And again, it was a lie. Hopper didn't die. Now the third time, the season 5 finale, the ending, the goodbye. The credits roll, same song, same placement, same emotional framing. That's not nostalgia, that's pattern recognition. Stranger Things has trained its audience to associate heroes with false endings, with deaths that didn't happen, with conclusions that aren't real. And this time, the show doesn't even give us the usual final season title card. No big, the end. No chapter stamp, just credits, and a 7 on the dice. If this were truly the final episode, why mirror 2 previous fake endings so precisely? Either this is the most careless reuse of symbolism the show has ever done, or it's intentional. And if it's intentional, then the finale we saw wasn't closure. It was misdirection, which brings us back to the countdown. Because if Stranger Things has a history of lying to us right before the truth drops, then January 7th suddenly doesn't sound crazy at all. Here's the part people keep getting wrong. They ask, why would Netflix ever do something this risky? The real question is, who can afford to? Netflix isn't experimenting with some random mid-tier show here. This isn't a limited series. This isn't a niche hit. This is Stranger Things, their crown jewel, the show that carried the platform through entire years, the one that broke viewing records, sold out merchandise, revived 80s music, and became bigger than Netflix itself. If any show can survive lying to its audience for a week, it's this one. And here's the thing, the reaction to the finale wasn't just mixed, it was loud, confused, defensive, divisive. People weren't just sad, they were arguing, rewatching, pausing frames, counting details. That's not what a satisfied audience does. That's what an audience does when something feels off. Netflix knows that. So instead of walking it back with interviews or explanations, they leaned into the chaos. Countdowns, clocks, upside down text. It's time posts with no context. WWE crossovers, Radio broadcasts, metadata weirdness. They didn't calm the fandom down. They poured gasoline on it. Because here's the marketing truth. Outrage dies fast. Confusion spreads. If there's no episode 9, then this finale will go down as one of the most disappointing endings in recent television history. That conversation doesn't help Netflix. That hurts rewatch value. That hurts legacy. But if there is another episode, even a short one, even a reveal, then suddenly everything flips. The weird writing becomes intentional. The anticlimax becomes setup. The backlash becomes the point. Stranger Things is one of the only shows big enough to pull that off without collapsing under the risk. Smaller shows would get canceled for trying this. Stranger Things gets headlines. So, when people say Netflix would never do this, what they really mean is most shows couldn't. This one can. And if they don't deliver something soon, then yeah, the finale stands as is. And that means all of this buildup, all these breadcrumbs, all this chaos was pointless. Which would honestly be worse than admitting there's more coming. That's why the countdown matters. That's why the silence matters. And that's why people aren't letting this go. If there is no episode 9, then the season 5 finale has to go down as one of the most disappointing endings in a long time. Not controversial, not misunderstood, just disappointing. Because this whole movement didn't come out of nowhere. Conformity Gate didn't start because fans were bored. It started because people finished the finale and immediately felt something was wrong. Characters acting strangely, choices that didn't line up, emotional beats that felt rushed or unearned, a final battle that didn't land, an epilogue that felt like it was checking boxes instead of closing arcs. That's the key point people keep ignoring. This theory wasn't born from hype, it was born from dissatisfaction. When writing is strong, fans don't invent alternate endings. They don't pause frames. They don't start decoding clocks and numbers and metadata. They sit with the ending and let it hit. That didn't happen here. Instead, people walked away asking basic questions. Why did this feel so small? Why did major character arcs resolve off-screen or not at all? Why did the tone suddenly shift into something artificial and oddly cheerful? Why did it feel like we were watching a summary of an ending instead of an ending? That confusion is what fueled everything. So if there's no episode 9, then all of this marketing, all of these teases, all of these strange choices don't become clever. They become careless. And Netflix would be left with a finale that didn't satisfy casual viewers or diehard fans. That's the worst possible outcome. Because now you've trained your audience to question reality, to look for lies, to expect twists, and if nothing comes, then you didn't outsmart them. You disappointed them twice, once with the writing, and again with the silence. That's why this theory refuses to die. Not because fans are delusional, but because the ending itself created the vacuum. And until Netflix fills it, people are going to keep asking the same question. Was that really the end? There's one more angle that explains why Netflix and the Duffer Brothers might be letting all of this spiral the way it is. The spin-off. The Duffers have already said they're officially starting work on a Stranger Things spin-off on Monday. That matters more than people realize. Because if they know they're continuing this universe, then suddenly a lot of these unresolved, uncomfortable choices start to make sense. Maybe the finale wasn't meant to answer everything. Maybe it wasn't meant to feel clean. Maybe it was meant to feel incomplete. If the spin-off is designed to pick up emotional loose ends, psychological fallout, or lingering questions about what was real and what wasn't, then leaving the main show slightly fractured becomes intentional, not sloppy. Think about it. The biggest complaints aren't about spectacle. They're about meaning, what actually happened to certain characters emotionally. Why do some arcs feel artificially closed? Why does the epilogue feel like a performance instead of a lived-in future? Those are perfect entry points for a spin-off. The Duffers have also been very careful with their language in interviews. They haven't confirmed certain fates. They haven't shut doors. They keep repeating that some things are open to interpretation. That's not how creators talk when they're done with a story forever. That's how they talk when they know they're coming back, just not in the same format. So maybe episode 9 isn't a surprise drop. Maybe it's a narrative handoff. The finale gives closure on the surface, but the spin-off is where the uncomfortable questions get addressed. The stuff that didn't sit right, the consequences that didn't get explored, the psychological damage, the lingering control, the idea that things weren't fully resolved. If that's the plan, then the silence isn't accidental. It's strategic. And suddenly, all of this energy, all of this theorizing, all of this obsession doesn't look like fans reaching. It looks like fans doing exactly what the creators hoped they'd do. Stay engaged, stay curious. Don't move on yet, because Stranger Things might be over in name only. No matter where you land on this, there's one thing that's hard to argue with. Conformity Gate has been fun. Not toxic, not delusional, fun in the purest Stranger Things way. This is the most alive the fandom has felt in years. People are pausing frames again, comparing scenes, arguing about symbolism, digging into marketing posts like they're D&D clues on a basement table. That's literally how this show started. Stranger Things was never meant to be consumed once and forgotten. It was built on mystery, patterns, misdirection, and kids trying to make sense of something bigger than them. Conformity Gate taps straight back into that DNA. And honestly, even if nothing drops, even if there's no episode 9, even if Netflix comes out and says, yeah, that was it, this still worked. Because for the first time in a long time, fans weren't just reacting. They were playing, connecting dots, challenging the story, treating the show like a puzzle again instead of a product.